Good evening, everybody. My name is Liz Cross. You all know me by now, I'm sure. It is March the 3rd, 2023, and I am here with the lovely Miss Sina. Miss Sina has a really extensive background in tarot readings, has a lot of intuitive information. She does a lot of deep dives. Unfortunately, for all of us, she is not doing readings right now, but she is here to join us today. Miss Sina, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm feeling much better.
Oh, thank God. You know what? It's been going around. I mean, it's just been one COVID, flu, colds, it's been a rough few months for everybody and especially you, but you sound great. And I'm so glad you're here. Now, I sprung this on Miss Sina. You know, I'm just obsessed with this case, right? But anyway, today in the judge's summing up, he mentioned that he had to get an order or some sort of approval to take Alex Murdaugh's relatives off the walls, their portraits off the walls of the courtroom, because he didn't want to bias the jury. And his relatives and he, because he was once a prosecutor as well, have been running the justice system in that little county for over 100 years. And then it hit me. Spirit said, he's his great-grandfather. So you see the guy here at the top of the tree, Randolph Murdaugh Sr., 1887 to 1940. Right at the top of the tree there. And I don't know if you can zoom in or not. That was Alex. Thank you. That was Alex Murdaugh's past life. Now, it just hit me. I was like, this does not make sense. I know that when I went into his past life previously, you know, it exposed like his wife, Maggie, and they always had problems. He was always very abusive. Her biggest thing is she could never get out of the trap. Excuse me. She tolerated the abuse. And he would always try to destroy her. Okay. Once again, they have recreated this in this lifetime. And I don't know if this is a cycle that can be broken. And it has to be broken with his soul. And like the judge said to him today, and everybody should watch that. The judge said to him today, when does this end? When does the lying end? When does the deception end? It's ended for everybody else because you're behind bars, but it hasn't ended for your soul. And I was like, this has to be some repercussion of a past life. And as I started looking into his soul, I did find that he was his great-grandfather. So the great-grandfather actually started this long lineage of, being a lawyer, being a prosecutor. And here he comes out in this lifetime, and he is so corrupted, it's not even funny. And I wanted to read this out. Miss Sina, I hope I'm not boring you guys. And if you do have any questions, please stop me. But this great-grandfather was very controversial in the way that he died. So let me just read this out. This is from the Washington Post. It says, incredibly, the suspicious 1940 death of Murdaugh's great-grandfather, which we now know was Alex Murdaugh's past life. So his great-grandfather, Randolph Murdaugh Sr., who started the family's legendary law firm, also led to a payout benefiting his son, who is likewise named or nicknamed Buster. So you see this family tree, here's his grandfather. So great-grandfather has the grandfather, and this grandfather got this massive payout. And it says details of the 1940 case were recently unearthed by South Carolina journalist and historian Michael M. DeWitt Jr., who has been covering the family for years and was featured in this Netflix documentary. I haven't seen the documentary, folks. I just haven't had time. DeWitt made the discovery by combing through the archives of the Hampton County Guardian newspaper, of which he is the editor. Randolph Murdaugh Sr. was born in 1887 in Varnville, South Carolina, in Hampton County, not far from his great-grandson's trial. Okay? So they've all stayed in that area. Let's see, he attended University of South Carolina Law School before returning home to start his own small practice in 1910. And that firm would eventually grow to be the legal titan with hundreds of attorneys. Crazy, huh? By 1920, he was married with kids and elected solicitor, which at that time was the equivalent of a prosecutor for a multi-county district. Except for a few months in 1956, a person named Randolph Murdaugh would be solicitor there for the next 86 years. So, here we go. It looks like the grandfather, Alex Murdaugh's grandfather, then took over and was the solicitor for 86 years, I think. Okay? I think that's what this is saying. Anybody listening can correct me. The Murdaugh name peppered the societal pages, his comings and goings, appearances at garden parties, family trips, wife's bridge party. And so they were like celebrity status in this town back in the day. And in the months before the great-grandfather's death, he was too ill to come to court, and his son, Randolph Murdaugh Jr., filled in for him. But on the evening of July 18th, 1940, he felt well enough to visit a friend a few towns over, perhaps to play poker. And on his way home at about 1 a.m. on July 19th, his car somehow came to a stop at a railroad crossing, and moments later, a freight train slammed into the car, killing him instantly, and he was 59 years old. So this is the great-grandfather. This is Alex Murdaugh's previous life, right? So Murdaugh Jr., which is Alex Murdaugh's grandfather, then in his mid-30s, soon announced he would run to fill his dad's seat as solicitor. He won by a landslide. And then his son, Randolph Murdaugh III, succeeded him. So now we're looking at Alex Murdaugh's father succeeded him from 1987 to 2005. So they're all chief prosecutors. And in October, a few months after the crash, one of the Murdaughs, I think it was the son, so his grandfather had sued the railway company for millions of dollars. Okay, so here's the controversy. They're wondering if this Randolph Murdaugh Sr. was corrupt, knew he was dying, knew he was terminally ill. Did he purposefully drive onto those train tracks to orchestrate his own death in order to get a massive payout for his son? Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. What do we need to ask?
Well, one of the things that popped in my head was an ancestral curse. Is that, and then what is his life lesson here? Like, why did he reincarnate as Richard Alex Murdaugh?
Exactly. So this is when they sued the railroad company. So you're talking about Randolph Buster Murdaugh Jr., who is Alex Murdaugh's grandfather. The train engineer testified that as the train approached Murdaugh Sr., his car was stopped near the tracks and he raised his hand and seemed to wave at him, according to DeWitt. Moments before the train crossed, the engineer said the car sped up and then stopped directly on the tracks, and his body was found 150 feet away. So locals have speculated for years that this death may have been a suicide or alcohol related. And the Murdaugh family settled with the railroad company for an undisclosed sum. Okay, so the first thing is, did this guy, who is Alex Murdaugh in a previous life, purposefully drive onto the tracks? So I'm going to actually try and get an answer here. Did he purposefully drive onto the tracks? No. He was very confused. So I don't know what sort of illness he was suffering, but he was very confused. Okay. Did he drive onto the tracks, out of this confusion? Yes. And so when he waved the driver, what was he thinking? He wasn't in his right mind. Shouldn't have been on the road. He shouldn't have been, driving out late at night. Was he drinking? Yes. He was also intoxicated. And what happened? He drove onto the tracks and the train hit him. Did he mean to do that? No, he did not. Okay. But the fact that he was intoxicated would mean that the payout was it shouldn't have happened, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, why don't we bring him in, Randolph Murdaugh Sr., and see what he has to say? Like if he
Okay. I've got him. What would you like to know?
So, were you drinking?
Yes, heavily.
And why do you think the accident happened?
Why do you think the accident happened? Carelessness.
And do you believe that what do you believe is the reason, or do you believe that there's a spiritual reason behind this?
Do you believe that there's a spiritual reason behind this? Yes. And it was all to do with money.
What is the life lesson?
What is the life lesson?
With money.
It's how money corrupts people.
And do you believe you reincarnated as Richard Alex Murdaugh to learn the same lesson?
Yeah, he definitely did reincarnate as Richard Alex Murdaugh. Now, this has always puzzled me, how somebody can, reincarnate, but I can still talk to their soul as they were in that previous lifetime. Do you have an answer for that? What's your theory?
Oh, on what?
On why, even though this Randolph Murdaugh Sr., this great-grandfather, has reincarnated to come into this lifetime as Richard Alex Murdaugh, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, like how he's living in the body of Richard Alex Murdaugh, the soul, but I can still channel him as the great-grandfather. Now, I find that does happen, and I don't understand why we're able to, probe Alex Murdaugh today, who was the soul, the same soul that was his great-grandfather, yet as I'm channeling, the great-grandfather is standing here.
That's a really good question. I've heard different theories on why. And it's because I believe each life has, its own spiritual body from that life experience. And the higher self will continue to reincarnate even in the same ancestral line to learn the lesson, because it's the same family members that are all trying to learn that lesson in the same way. Because I've supposedly had previous past lives with, my current family members. And, they just keep happening. And even if you don't, like, remember we did some of the probes where I had a bad experience with that shaman, and I had previous lives with him. And why did I run into him again in this life? Randomly, because I would have never met him normally, but I still ran into him. And I guess it was meant to happen, right? So maybe we could ask Randolph Murdaugh's higher self why that happens.
Why did this happen? Why? See, it's all about money and corruption. Okay? That's what I'm getting. That's the main message. What is it that you wanted to teach? And it looks like by the time the money, because it was preserved quite well, right? The grandfather preserved the wealth, actually made it into more wealth. The father preserved the wealth, made it into more wealth, and now him. And I'm saying, what on earth is the life lesson? But he was born, like, he was so corrupt, even from quite a early age. I feel like he was very privileged. It's coming through that he was, thought he was above the law. He thought that he ran the town. He was untouchable. I think one of the papers said he went around like he was Teflon. He was very nasty to women. Okay, and I've uncovered that in previous probes as well, where I don't know if his wife Maggie ever let anyone know, but how abusive he actually was. I feel like she tried to cover up and mask the situation as this high society family, but behind closed doors, I can see, sexual assaults, hitting her, talking down to her, shouting in her face, being very verbally, mentally abusive. And this is the side that nobody saw of him but her. And dare she try to speak out against someone like this? She probably knew, and I've actually got her here and I'm channeling. She's telling me, I knew that I couldn't. I was doomed. I had to keep my mouth shut. He was too privileged. He was too prominent. How dare I speak out and ruin this Murdaugh reputation?
Okay, I have some questions. So how old is his soul? Do you have like his higher self or his soul self?
It's very old. It's quite old, but it doesn't seem to learn the lessons.
So so his higher self is saying that is this life part of his lesson that he has to pass, like a lesson he has to pass in order to move to the next level? Or
what is the lesson that you have to pass here? Okay, I can only tell you what he's telling me. Redemption.
Redemption of what?
Redemption of what? That I'm not high and mighty, that I'm not above others. You see, I get it. I've had this before. Okay, when I've done CTT sessions for people, people are like, oh God, I'm tired of being broke in this lifetime. Nothing, I could never hold on to money, blah, blah, blah. And when I have probed them in past lives, sometimes they did have the money. They did have the status, back in the day. And they totally destroyed people around them because of this money and the status and this power. That is exactly what he is playing out in this lifetime, where he has had too much power, too much money, too much control. Because I feel like prior to this Randolph Murdaugh Sr., his previous lifetime, prior to that, before that lifetime, they were actually poverty-stricken farmers, right? That fell on really hard times. It was in that lifetime that this Randolph Murdaugh Sr. decided he wanted to rise above the poverty, and he wanted to go to law school. He wanted to do something with his life. He didn't want to be a farmer anymore. He wanted to be high society. He had big ambitions. And then, of course, there was the mistake that he made of driving on that train track, which then gave the family a windfall of money. They shouldn't have received that payout. Now that we realize that, because he was confused, he was drunk, he drove onto the tracks, he was at fault. The train company are not at fault, but he got the payout anyway, or they got the payout. And here we go. Here we go, layers of corruption. And then you breed someone like this Alex Murdaugh.
So let's ask Alex Murdaugh what he thinks of the verdict, and if he feels like he's learned anything.
Do you feel like you've learned anything? All I've been getting all day from him is, I'm going to kill myself.
Oh.
It's so sad what has happened. It's just disbelief. And I think the judge summed it up very nicely, which is to go from, your great grandfather and your grandfather portraits on the wall to this. It's just unbelievable. And I'm saying, let me ask this question. You had so much money anyway. You were born into money. You went to the best schools. You had the best education. You had, no debt, as far as he's telling me, no debt when he got out of school. Everything was handed to him. He had a place in a firm. He had it quite easy. And yet he just abused that privilege so much. And I think this is his lifetime of, too much power, too much control. And so what will happen in subsequent lifetimes? Let me ask, what will happen in subsequent lifetimes? They're going to go back to being, poor again. Maybe not poor as in extremely dirt poor farmers, but they're going to go back to this level of money is unobtainable. I actually uncovered a previous life once where somebody was working for, somebody in high society back in the UK, not the royal family, but, very, very wealthy. And he was painting or doing something, repairing something on the outside of the house. He was on a ladder. He fell off the ladder. He cracked his head open. They came outside and they were like, oh, no, and he actually died. He cracked his head open and died when he fell off the ladder. And they were like, oh, no, now what are we going to do? Who's going to repair our house? And as his soul was leaving his body, he heard them say that. And he says, you know what? If being rich makes you like that, then I never want to be rich ever again. I never want to be rich like these people. And so guess what? Every lifetime after that, he wasn't wealthy in that lifetime, but every lifetime he struggles, including this lifetime. No matter what he does, it's always a failure.
So I feel like I want to bring in Jesus and ask Jesus what he thinks of this. Does he have any advice?
Do you have any advice? If he doesn't correct this life lesson in this lifetime, he may not be allowed to reincarnate.
What happens when he doesn't reincarnate?
His soul may end up being destroyed.
Oh, yeah. I've heard, does he get sent back to source?
Does he get sent back to source? Yes.
And then stripped down to like his bare essence, and then
the soul is like basically, I think this is where the concept of hell comes in. Okay. I think this what must mean you're going to burn in hell. There's actually no pain associated with the incineration of the soul, the complete wiping of the soul. But you never get to exist as that individual soul ever again. This is how serious what he has done is. And I know he's brought about a lot of life lessons for a lot of people, like all the people he's hurt that were close to him, his family. Obviously, he's killed his wife and his son. Those are soul contracts. All of this is soul contracts. He destroyed the law firm, put them into serious debt. He basically, nobody knew what this man or who this man really was. Now, it could be the drugs that made him the way he was. It the drugs that made you kill your wife and your son? Yes. Okay, what was it about the drugs? I didn't want to be caught. And I find this over and over. When somebody has an addiction, that addiction comes before everything else. Now, you've heard the term narcissism. I find with narcissism, all narcissists are addicts. Not all addicts are narcissists, but all narcissists have addictions that they're protecting. And if you want to talk about extreme narcissism, this is Alex Murdaugh. Extreme narcissism. And if anybody knows anything about narcissists, they're pathological liars, right? And it's easy for them. They don't care. They have zero empathy, no empathy whatsoever. Okay? They're usually caught up in an addiction. The narcissistic personality disorder takes over in order to protect that addiction so that the brain is always satisfied. So they're completely out of control. And in this case, and in the case of most narcissists, or actually all narcissists, they love to play the victim. So he actually believed that by playing the victim and being the grieving husband, right, it was a perfect opportunity for him to get let off on all these, stealing and make things right. And, Alex had a rough time. It's all to do with the boat case. And now his son's been killed. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And they play the victim in order to manipulate. But the whole thing here, it's just so interesting to me that he has gone from Randolph Murdaugh Sr., the one that started the law firm to get the family out of poverty, to change the family tree. And now look what he's created.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the cycle of ancestors.
It is.
Saying, yeah. So I found this very interesting too. And it's sad that his family had to go through this. Do you want to probe his family and see how they feel about this? Was this part of their like a part they played in for him, or was it for them? Lessons for them also?
Well, they're still in disbelief that he was even convicted. They firmly believe that he's innocent.
No, the families that the members that were murdered.
Oh, the members that were murdered?
Yeah.
This does not surprise them at all. This was part of the soul contract. They all agreed to it. I know people won't want to hear that. I'm sorry. That's what we do. We make soul contracts because they had to experience such an extreme, extreme drama or traumatic event in order that finally the souls will change.
Has he ever played the victim, or has he ever been a victim in a past life?
Has he ever been a victim in a past life? Yes, he has.
And he didn't learn from that past life?
No. And in fact, and I don't know about the justice and the historical context of, Randolph Murdaugh Sr., but I feel like back in the day, they gave people lashings. Now that could be was that your great-grandfather's lifetime? Yeah. So this is him. In this previous lifetime, when people would get convicted, they got lashings. And I feel like at some point, way back, before the great-grandfather's lifetime, he got lashings for something he did not do. He was accused of doing something. spirit are showing me he was accused of doing something. He was proclaiming his innocence and he got a lashing. And I'm saying, but you're not innocent in this lifetime. And he's saying, no, I know that. So what are you now? So, okay. So what he is now, he's the perpetrator. So that's a common scenario when we're doing past life regression. One lifetime you're the victim, one lifetime you're the perpetrator, or another lifetime you're a witness. So in this lifetime, he's the perpetrator.
So if we agree to all these lifetimes where we play different roles, then why would his soul get destroyed?
If we agree to all these lifetimes where we play, that's a good question. Because this is like the last chance saloon for these souls.
Oh.
They've had opportunity. Was the dad corrupt? Yeah, the dad was corrupt too. Would the dad beat the mom? No. So his dad didn't beat the mom, but he would shout and he was very abrupt. What about the grandfather? Did the grandfather? Yeah, the grandfather was very abusive to women. So when I see Alex Murdaugh and I'm asking, and I see his wife Maggie and his son Paul, and I'm asking Maggie and Paul to give me examples. And I'm saying, let me ask Paul, did you ever see your father beat your mom? And I get the same answer all the time. No, but we heard it. So that's not uncommon in abusive households where, dad's been drinking or whatever. He goes in, slaps the wife around. The kids run and hide, but they're listening to all the trauma and the screaming and the fighting and the beating and so that's where they were corrupted. The kids, certainly. Because when I've probed Buster's lifetime out, and I'll move him out into the future again, and let's move him out, let's say 20 years. So I'm going to go March the 3rd, 2043, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time? No, Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time. Buster, what are you doing now? He's a failure. And he turns into just like his dad. Now, really, this is his opportunity to say, you know what? I want to be nothing like my dad. I'm going to rebuild the reputation of the Murdaugh name. I'm going to be a chief prosecutor. I'm going to work hard in law school. But unfortunately, that does not happen. Does he ever go back to law school? No, he does not go back to law school. Instead, he owns his own little business. Do you steal? He doesn't steal, but are you a drinker? Yes. See, he drinks. And do you do drugs? Yes, he takes drugs. And this is what I keep getting over and over, that instead of turning this around for Buster, instead of him changing the family tree again, right? He doesn't have it within him to do so. So he ends up like his dad. Do you end up, excuse me, as a criminal? No. Are you abusive to your wife? No. But he is a drunk and he does have drug issues.
Okay.
So
well,
did you want
to do a CTT for him or maybe later?
Excuse me. I'll do a CTT for him. You know why? I know, I'll do a little one for him, not live on air, but I just feel so sorry for all the people that have been hurt by this man.
Yeah.
I mean, now his son basically has no parents, no siblings, right? I don't know why it's showing 3 here. Maybe there was another sibling that passed and I didn't know about it. And we could go on all night about this corrupt family, but it just see how this cycle has come round. It's come first full circle.
Aren't these lessons for his family members too? I mean, for them to, for them to change their lives or their purpose in order to stop this, right?
No, because of the type of soul he is, that's a good question. Because of the type of soul he is, he's always like leader of the pack, right? He's so powerful. He is so headstrong. And on a soul level, he's the one that's either pulling the souls forward like he did as the great grandfather. He pulls them forward. They have a better existence. And then, or he's bringing them down. And so in this lifetime, he's doing the opposite of his great grandfather, which is he's pulling the souls down. In that lifetime, he elevated the souls. In this lifetime, he is like, woo, teaching everybody these massively hard lessons. And really, like Jesus said, it's really a matter of he's got to redeem his soul at this point. He's got to beg for forgiveness. He has to process everything and what he's done. And I do feel, he will accomplish that. And I've said this in my last video, he'll become a minister in the jail and really start to minister to people. And, because he always has to be this leader type figure. I just find this whole thing interesting. The fact that he was his great grandfather, and look what his great grandfather, created in this lifetime.
Yeah. Well, I guess, he wanted to experience the whole gamut of, of what this lifetime. Yeah, definitely.
It's gone from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it really has. And that's what we do on a soul level. We go from one extreme to the other, right? Look at Elon Musk. He's a billionaire in this lifetime. He's going to be a trillionaire one day. When I look back in his previous lifetimes, he was dirt poor, hungry, couldn't afford to eat. So he's chosen, and we all do get this opportunity, but those of us that are listening, it's not in our lifetimes, right? Or maybe it is if you're one of those few lucky people, but we all get to experience it. And it's what we do with it when we have it. And look what he's done. I'm not saying he's a billionaire, but he certainly had the wealth and the privilege in this lifetime. And look what he's done with it.
Yeah. Well, let's ask his higher self. I mean, this was planned, right? He wanted to experience being very powerful in this lifetime, right? So he could.
I actually, one thing that comes across in most of his lifetimes, he's extremely powerful. Except for the one where he was whipped. But in his more recent lifetimes, he's always very powerful.
So can we ask Jesus about the astrology aspect of this? Because when I've studied astrology, Vedic astrology specifically, and, the time you're born will actually kind of lay out your whole life and your life experiences. You can actually see timing of events and, your parents in there, your children, your career, major life events. So like, if that's the case, I mean, it seems like before you come, you can kind of program the life you want based on the time you were born. So if that's true, then, I mean, he plans to come every life to be powerful and rich and just experience the same thing and try and learn the lesson?
Do you come back in every other lifetime rich and powerful? No, I think this is it for his rich and powerful lifetime.
Yeah.
This is it. In fact, his soul is saying, if this is what it does, I don't want to come back as rich and powerful. I want to be a regular person that has to work, that has to earn, that has integrity. So this is it for him. This is a really, really hard lesson. And that's providing he meets the challenge. And the challenge is that he had to experience all this. This is what Spirit are saying. He had to experience all this turmoil, that when he's in jail and he's doing his ministry and he's converting and he's baptizing and he's doing all of that and he's holding prayer circles and and he's, saving people's souls, as it were, if you want to use the Southern Baptist, the Southern Holy Roller term. That's what he was set here to do.
Well, I think it's a good lesson. Hopefully he'll pass it.
Hopefully he'll pass it. The problem that we have right now, and that keeps bleeding through in a lot of his probes, is he wants to kill himself. So hopefully he'll not kill himself, and he'll be able to live this out for as long as possible, and be able to heal loads of broken people. I mean, look at this. He's a prosecutor who has put people in jail. And even the judge said today, you've sat here and prosecuted people that got the death penalty for lesser crimes than what you've committed.
Yeah.
And they do have the death penalty in South Carolina, but I don't think the judge and everybody could bring themselves to giving this man the death penalty. And also, based upon legal terms, it was explained that under circumstantial evidence, you don't ever want to sort of pursue the death penalty, because that's really severe. And most likely it will bounce back either a hung jury or a not guilty based upon circumstantial. So they went ahead and did away with having him go to, be put to death. But the fact that he got 2 life sentences. So look at this. I mean, he's a prosecutor. He knows how broken these people are. Now he's going to go live with them. And eventually, within 10 years, it's going to take him a long time, but he's going to learn that the way he survives in jail, in prison, with these hardcore people, right? Mm-hmm. The way he survives with them is by ministry.
Yeah.
And that's kind of still a manipulation tactic, actually. Yeah. Look at that. If that's the way that I could survive and get through this without being shanked or killed or, stabbed or strangled or whatever, beaten brutally, I'm going to manipulate them another way, and I'm going to minister to them. But I do believe Jesus is actually laughing when I say that. Will his ministry be genuine? No, it will be quite superficial. Will it help to heal his soul? Yes, it will help to heal his soul.
Okay.
Well, I just think this is interesting. I won't do any more Murdaugh stuff, guys. You won't have to hear it anymore. Not certainly on the video, but I just wanted to just do this as a grand finale to this crazy, crazy Southern aristocratic family. And what's so interesting? Because I'm down here. We have a family in our little country area. It's almost the same thing. Dad was a lawyer. Granddad was a lawyer. We owned all the land, very prestigious, and yet when they've come down to Murdaugh's sort of line on the family tree, these two are the biggest drunkards you'd ever seen. One of them actually killed a carload of people while drunk and was never arrested, never never charged, never convicted, and he's still practicing law in this town. That's why I could identify with this case so much. I see it here, and I think probably most counties or towns have this one family down here in the South, of course, have this one family that are just like the Murdaughs. But okay, maybe they didn't kill their own family members by shooting them. But you're driving home drunk in the middle of the day, and you're slamming your car into the back of a carload of a family full of car full of family members, not their own, but they killed many members in this one car, and nothing happens. It's the same thing. They're touting their prestige, their aristocracy. So there you go. All right. Well, I'll shut this one down and we'll go on to the next one.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.